Okay, this is where we left you in the last video, and you were asked to type in all those values. So you would have been going through and going equals the quantity times by the cost of the individual item, and it gives you that. And if I was to change any of these numbers, it would update for me. And that's what I'm going to be testing for. However, there is a quicker way to do it. Instead of doing each and every single one, we did look at autofill. And if you remember autofill being, if we had the numbers 1 and 2, we could select that pattern, and that little green box down the bottom right, we could actually move our mouse to this black cross and click and drag, and that will actually complete the pattern for us. The same thing works here as well in terms of our formulas. When we actually roll down, it completes that pattern. So for instance, if I was to actually go through and change this number 50 to 1, that will cost $1.60 times 1 equals $1.60. If I was to increase that to do $3.20. So you can actually see that that's working for me, because remember the issue we had last time about our cell referencing that we're talking about here with the strings? Because that doesn't actually exist in our cells here, as we drag it down, it updates. And because the cell reference is on the side rather than up the top, it actually works quite well here. So that is why it does do that for you in terms of dragging those numbers down. So if you actually typed in each one, just try replacing it to see if those numbers still work. And 25 by 45 is quite high, so let's reduce that. So we can actually see that my total quantity is also updating as I'm changing. The very next thing that you were asked to do is a total cost, which is basically just as a summary technique. We can actually go equals sum, and again we could have clicked each and every single item, but that would have taken forever. With computers, if it's taking too long, you're probably doing it wrong. There's probably a better way. So we can actually click our starting cell, drag down to our last cell, and you'll see that it goes E3 to E10, and there we go, we've got our total cost. And because all these had dollar signs in front, that also has a dollar sign in front. So there are a number of ways to do a number of different tasks, and I'm just finishing off my formatting as well. So there is all that. The last one is an average cost. So where we would usually type in equals sum, that will only add them, and in this case, knowing the sum of all the individual items together of just one each is not useful at all. It might be what's the average cost of an item, and there's a number of reasons that you would need to use this. So instead of writing sum, I'm going to type in average. And again, there's a number of different average ways, but the one we want is that first one, and it says returns the average of its arguments, which are the numbers of names, etc. It basically gives you the average of those numbers. So if you actually remember, let's just sidestep out of that for a second, and you'll see that that's come up with name, and that's just an error saying I haven't completed that formula. So if I was to have the numbers, let's say 2, 4, 6, and 8, I could actually find out what the average is by going equals average, open my bracket, and again, just like sum, I can click and drag those cells, close my bracket, and it gives me the number 5. That is calculating the average. And if you remember what average does, it goes all the numbers added together. So 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 plus 6 is 12, 12 plus 8 is 20. So we have a number of 20. The next thing it does is it divides it by the amount of numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. So it's 20 divided by 4. And then it gives me what 20 divided by 4 is, which is equal to 5. So instead of actually adding all those numbers together, then dividing by the amount of numbers together, and then getting our answer like that, we actually use this particular function called equals average and select those numbers, and Excel will do all that for us. There's no point for us to do it. So what we can actually do is, let's go back up to our cell. Now we've already started typing it. I'm just going to click on the formula bar, and that takes me to where I was. So equals average, open my bracket, click and drag the actual cost of the items, close my bracket, hit enter. So the average cost of an item is $4.53. If I was to increase this one that's 10 cents, I might want to increase that to, let's say, $1.80. All of a sudden my averages change, everything updates that you can see. If I change the bunny to, let's say, $1.80, it also changes. If I reduce $25, then that brings my average up quite a lot. If I was to reduce that to $3, it reduces my average as well. So it is the case where it is quite powerful in the way it works. And 250 does that, so let's replace that back to 25. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this, and some are more powerful than others. We have actually looked at using sum, and this video we've looked at average. So make sure you're actually quite competent with that, and try, just quickly, chucking in a couple of numbers and finding the average. So your task for this video is to make sure not only have you completed the table, but to actually come up with just a list of numbers, whatever they may be, and I want you to find out the average, and I want you to do that several times. So several means 3, so come up with it once, twice, and 3 times, and you can literally just do things like this and just type in some random numbers, etc. And then at the bottom, again, I'm just going to go through and do the top and bottom border, right, average, and just practice typing in that command equals average. So you've got your average, and I also want you to do this for sum. So again, I'm just going to format my cell and go equals sum of that same range. It's just about practicing selecting your bits and pieces, and if you aren't careful, you do make mistakes. So let's just do that one as a demo again. So I do want you to come up with 3 of them to get that, so you get all the numbers added together, and if I come along and actually change a number, I need those to update. So make sure you do that 3 times. The numbers don't matter, it's actually more so about practicing doing that average and that sum. The last one I would like you to have a look at is try and figure out what count is, and that's what we'll look at in our next video.